Welcome to this month's Millennial Spotlight, brought to you by Lead with Intention. I'm Leslie Bosserman, Executive Coach and Lifestyle Strategist, partnering with millennial leaders and their managers. The purpose of these conversations with millennial changemakers is to deepen and extend the dialogue around how to lead with intention. This month, we're focusing on the intention of authenticity and how you show up in a way that reflects your core values, even when it's hard. With so much that goes into authenticity, I'm excited to be here with Brian Jones, who's one of the most multifaceted people I've had the pleasure of meeting. Brian has experience in everything from being a radio personality, directing and producing films, and most importantly, raising 4 courageous children. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. So start by sharing a little bit just about your background and how you spend your time now. So what is authentically you?
Well, background, like you said, started in radio personality, so to speak. I was actually out of high school here in Sacramento. I was a high school radio station. Went straight from there right into back then, which was 93 Rock, 98 Rock now, and then the Zone 100.5. Not sure if they're still around. I don't remember. But leading into that, went into a music career, did that for a while, and then just kind of went into retail management. And then recently, within the last 2 years, decided, it was time to get back into doing something more me. Retail, you kind of put on a front, so to speak, to get people in. And yeah, leading a family, 9 years married in September, and 4, like you said, very courageous kids. And it's just a very exciting
very
time.
Full, blessed life.
Oh, very full, yeah.
So how would you define authenticity?
I think it's just being true to who you are. I think that's number one. Authentic people need to understand that you have to be true to your core value, whatever that is. You're going to have set values that you have in your life. Being true to that and being real to people. There's, like I said, the whole retail mentality. You create this persona when you're in front of somebody. Goes with anybody when it comes to film or TV as well. But being actually true to your core self and presenting that to other people, that takes a huge chunk of vulnerability in your life to do so. And I think that's where that comes into play.
Yeah, and being vulnerable, it's one of those places that when you're there, it's not really fun.
Yeah.
It's not a space we try to stay in, but it's necessary. It's a space that allows us to get more information about ourselves, to kind of dive into deeper self-discovery. And when I work with clients, a lot of them don't know how to define their core values. They know what they want them to be, or they know maybe what someone once told them they were. So when you think about what you value and what really shows up for you now in this season, what would you say are some of your top values?
Top value number one is I put God first, plain and simple. For me, that was something that it was a life lesson, even when I thought I was. I'm really truly understanding that now. And then family, and that could be anything for anybody really. It doesn't necessarily need to be like a married life. It could be boyfriend, it could be girlfriend, sister, brother, whatever. But understanding that those people, you only get one time with them, and that's very valuable. And understanding that is a huge aspect of my life now. So I really try to always relate myself back to that. Blessed that I have them in my life, but also blessed to do something that I love in life and having that support system. And I think when people are getting out and doing something that's really, I don't know, maybe against the grain, so to speak, sometimes, because we all have ideas, we all have desires in life, and sometimes we shoot them down because we think there's no possible way.
Yeah, it's not possible. I can never do that. Like only when this happens. Yeah, all the excuses we make.
Exactly. Yeah. So just understanding that there's a support system there, and really just applying, like I said, that genuine, just personality to somebody. When I ask somebody, how are you today? I actually want to know.
Yeah, I've noticed you wait for a response, right, which is rare. And when I think of you, and the reason why I'm so excited to have you here is like what defines you as authentic relationships. That's you in a nutshell, right, I would say. But there's so much more when you crack open the shell. So when you think about times that you've either been living or not living according to your values or living authentically, like how do you know that? Like how, if someone was kind of going along their life listening to this spotlight interview and they're like, authenticity, I need to think about that more. Like where would you point them?
I think it comes back to, again, your core root values of whatever that is for you. When things are not going in the direction that I was hoping for, I usually look at that first of all, and I make sure that I'm still being authentic, making sure that I'm still presenting myself in that way through everything that I do. And I notice when I'm not, it's because of that reason of that I'm not, it just gets all messed up. It becomes blurry. The lines aren't so clear of what my steps are. And just understanding that. And of course, like I said, man of faith, so I always take that up first and then really kind of reflect on that a little bit. I don't get the answers. I'm not, saying that I get answers from that, but I do get a clearer vision in my head on going, okay, I haven't been presenting myself and just my values the way they should be. So I really, when people start getting kind of disrupted in that, I really say take a step back, really look at what you're supposed to be doing. What was your overall goal in the first place? Because sometimes when we start being successful in that field, we forget what that is. And when we forget what that is, then you start losing yourself as an authentic person. So
yeah, in last month's interview, we talked a lot about like doing versus being. And so often we get so caught up in the doing. We're like doing, that we're doing on a path that might lead us somewhere where we don't want to be. And so when I think about kind of what you share about core values and how you show up authentically, like you have to start with that place of being. So who do I want to be based on these values? Then what can I do? Like what's that next step? And I hear a lot of millennials, they're just so driven by accomplishment and achievement, and it's sort of the stereotype, but it also is something that is a core driver. We all want to be successful, but it's how does that success manifest? So when you think about like the purpose you're describing and what you're doing, if a millennial were to come to you and say, wow, you've had such a diverse kind of career path. You're a father, you're a husband, you have all these opportunities, you're involved in a lot of different areas. How can you kind of take your experience in all of these places and distill authenticity? So I guess the bottom line is when you look at a guidepost for helping millennials who are maybe struggling with that pull of what does it look like to show up maybe at a job they don't like you mentioned, kind of the retail space.
Right.
What would you say to encourage them or help them?
I think number one is you need to look at yourself and be happy at what you do. And there's sometimes, and this is a life lesson that I learned, sometimes you have to close a door or close something that's actually successful in order for something to be more successful. And that is one of the hardest lessons to learn. And I think a lot of millennials and entrepreneurs that I met as well, and just people in general, they're too scared to do that because they might see it as failure. And sometimes you have to do some of those things that you don't want to do in order to get to the path, because that's just how it is. It's just a part of life.
Yeah, and like risking the unknown almost.
Exactly.
When you close the door, you're like, you don't know what's happening. You might be comfortable
Right.
in the things that really are really uncomfortable, but at least you know it.
Right.
So I know that the times in life when it's like, okay, I'm going to take that leap, I'm going to be brave, and I know this is right, but I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
That's scary.
It's extremely scary, and like I say, it goes back to being vulnerable. You're going to have to understand that. So I think to pursue that authentic lifestyle and to actually apply it to whatever it is that you're doing in life. Number one, you just got to understand that when you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, you should always be doing it with a smile. And if there's something in between that wake up and ending that doesn't create either one of those, then you need to look at your life a little bit. And I think people back in like the boomer area, that was success was, you're big, I'm the CEO or something to that extent. And
It's more status driven.
More status driven. And I'm not saying you can't reach those goals because I very, very strongly feel that that's attainable for everybody if that's what your path is supposed to be. But I find more success in the happiness that I have, the time that I have with my family, the time to do something that I love. It's, we're planting seeds every time that we're doing something. And I might not actually see what comes out of that seed. I might not actually ever see the final product, but somebody else behind me will. And that might be my kids or some other person who decides to Google me, please don't, and actually find it. But that's the whole point of it. So I think, for millennials out there, I think they need to focus on just being real with themselves. Don't get caught up in labels. Don't get caught up in image. All that kind of falls into play a way it's supposed to anyhow, if you are being authentic, and just, pursue your dreams.
Yeah, and what I love about that advice is it's be happy, but also do something that matters.
Right.
So it's not about kind of that narcissistic happiness. We have little bits of that in our life, but the bulk of our life should be around how are we living and leading through service? How are we giving back more than we take? So we live in a consumerist society. We consume all the time, whether it's digital or information or things from other people. We soak things in. We're like big sponges.
Right.
And when I think about the most authentic people I know, they consume, but they also produce. They create something out of what they consume to double, triple, like infinitely give back. And those are the people that personally inspire me and that I hope that continue to inspire others. Because it's not, again, about the status you reach. It's not about just putting in your time so you can retire, but how do you create a life that's based on fulfillment, not just retirement? So the relationships that you mentioned, like those are the ones day to day have to be fulfilling. It's not, hey, when I'm 65 and retire, I can spend time with my grandkids.
Right.
It's like, no, you need to have time now. We so focus on what's next and we sacrifice what's now. So it's like, if there's anything I could share with millennials, it's really ask yourself what's now for you and think about if there's something that's causing friction, like you said, that's not working, that's not fitting, that's causing you not to maybe smile as brightly. Examine that. You might not need to change it right away, but at least take a look at it. So
I totally agree.
Yeah. Are there any other opportunities that you see when people live authentically? What's the impact that you notice when you're around other people who do this?
Oh man, when you're around people that actually try to pursue that or whatnot, and let me be very clear on this: you're not going to know until you're actually around them. It's not like we walk around with a sign. As you can look at me, it's like a VIP club or anything of that nature. But
it's not like when you smile, your teeth sparkles.
Exactly. But when you're actually around people who are pursuing that in life, the number one thing you're going to notice is that it's not about them. And I think that's what separates, 10, 20 years ago, where it was just like the status quo. It's not about them. It's about how they can achieve whatever happiness or greatness that they want in their life, but also, like you said, give back. And you'll see people who are pursuing this type of lifestyle by actually impacting others. They don't want to create something that's great just for themselves. They want to create something that's great because they want it to help others or impact others or change something around them.
Yeah, they see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And I think that's huge. And when you have a group of people together like that, I mean, it's just endless possibilities. It really is. And that's what I love about it. It inspires me. And that's why, like I said, I ask questions. I go, how was your day? I want to know, what are you working on? What are you doing? What do you do in life? Because something that might be not interesting to me at first can be, because I just don't know anything about it. And I need to be educated. So when I ask somebody that question, I truly want to know what they're doing. It could be dance, it could be art, it could be music, whatever that is, miming, hopefully not, but it can be, and it's one of those things that I want to know, because when I see people develop their skills and actually giving myself the opportunity to hear that, they take away from that conversation that I took the time to hear them, and therefore it just kind of pushes them a little bit more, I feel. It gives them that little extra, like, okay, yeah, somebody's willing to hear my vision.
Somebody cares.
Exactly.
Yeah, and the time piece is huge. Like,
really
I find as a first-time mom now, juggling parenthood and relationships and work and volunteering and all the stuff that makes up a full life, the currency of time, it feels like it's increasing, right? So oftentimes just that question where you gift somebody the space to answer it, that in itself is like this pure place of authentic potential.
Totally.
Right? So it's not just, oh, how are you? Great. Nice to see you. Have a good day. Like, we can do small talk any day. Yeah. I shared this in a training last week about what kind of egg are you? And bear with me, this is kind of a silly metaphor, but it's a fun one, whether or not you like eggs. So you first have the shell, and you have to crack through the shell to see what's on the inside. And then you have the whites, and that's the small talk. That's the, hey, how's your day? How's the weather? The kind of stuff that you would pretty much share with anyone. But to get to the yolk, to get to what really matters, the core values, like what you would only share when you're really vulnerable, that takes space, time, relationships. And there's all types of eggs. Like, there's people who more of a fried egg, where you got to get through the whites in order to get to the yolk. You got to access it. Right. And I'm personally more of a scrambled egg. I kind of just throw it all out there because I just like showing up authentically. And I believe that people should be trusted, and to extend that trust as a gift. So I use this metaphor as kind of a fun way to say, okay, how are we being authentic to ourselves? It's not bad if you need a space to get to the yolk, to get to the meat of
Correct.
it. Just don't be a rotten egg. Don't be a bad egg, I guess.
Yeah.
or a hard-boiled egg. Then we'll have another episode for you on that one. So when you think about just the potential that exists with authenticity, is there anything else that you wanted to add or to champion just young leaders who are looking, especially in the workplace? I think that's one of the hardest spaces. Maybe if you can touch upon just showing up authentically at work. And
totally. I mean, people need to realize, we're living in a crazy time right now, and a crazy time. Like, I look at my kids and I go, you guys have no idea what you have at your fingertips these days. And the amount of just realness that can be out there, but the amount of scary, not authentic stuff that's out there as well. And understanding that when you walk into a workplace, having the ability to separate a little bit, disconnect yourself from the crud that might be wearing you down, and walking in there with the attitude of, look, this is who I am, and still represent yourself in a positive way. We all have to do those jobs, and it kind of my own little metaphor, we all love ice cream, but we sometimes have to eat those lima beans, and and you just have to understand.
You mean there's not lima bean ice cream?
No, there might
Thankfully.
be, but you have to do that, and it's not a bad thing. Lima beans are actually very healthy for you. You just realize during that time when you're eating them, it's just not really something you want to do.
Yeah, you don't typically wait until dessert to eat your lima beans. It's
exactly.
more like, okay, I got to get through this.
Yeah, so sometimes we have to go through that, but still, I didn't matter what job, and I've worked almost anything at this point in my life. In a good way, though. I'm a person who wants to experience different things in life. And I've had, I did CNA work I actually worked for an embalming unit at a hospital. I've seen everything and done everything. And always walking in with the attitude of, I'm still going to present myself in a way, because that person who's sitting next to me, everybody's going through something, and they could be going through a lot worse than you are, and that's probably why they have that bad attitude.
It's getting outside yourself. It's the space and the time to actually, recognize that you need to do that, and then to actually do it.
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, millennials, who live an authentic life. Really being authentic, and doesn't even apply it applies to everybody, really. It's not about yourself. It really isn't. It's not about you, because you still get to be you. You still get to be represented by yourself and by however you're made and whatever your gene is, but they're going to see the true person of you, because it's so easy to be fake nowadays. It's so easy.
Yeah, the whole fake it till you make it.
Exactly.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially for a lot of millennials who are maybe in their first job,
Yep.
or trying to get a job, or trying to get out of a job.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Which, brings me to the social media thing. Honestly, if I was an employer today, and I know that people do this, if I had to go to your Facebook account and looked at your Facebook account, and then I met you in person and actually went and hung out with you, those two better mirror each other. Because if they don't, then you're probably not being the real you. It's quite clear,
And I hear a lot of millennials, and I've even shared this before, so should your personal life and your professional life have some level of separation? And I think there is, like you mentioned,
totally.
you do hold some stuff at the door. You're not going to be a scrambled egg your first day on the job necessarily.
Yeah.
There's a healthy place to be. But what I'm hearing you say is, if I go to your Facebook page after we end here, and there's things on it that don't map with what you're sharing with me, how do I trust you, right?
Right, exactly.
And so how do I build confidence in a relationship? And that's beyond the professional. That's just on a heart level. Mm-hmm. And so whenever we're in situations at work that maybe step on our core values or wear us down a little, we all have times. And this is maybe not work, but in life. Mm-hmm. I almost look at it as like we're this ship sailing along, and our sails are these beautiful, authentic places that take us to where we need to go. But then all the crud are like barnacles. And a barnacle isn't a bad thing. We can deal with it, but it attaches to our ship. And one barnacle won't sink our ship, but a million might. Mm-hmm. So it's figuring out, what environments do we show up in where we can still sail, and maybe we just let a barnacle be because that's the environment we're in. I am championing millennials to look and say, okay, what can I do in my environment to live by my values? To not spend all my time chipping barnacles off my boat, that I'm not moving somewhere and not showing up authentically. Mm-hmm. But their ship is not sinking as well.
Mm-hmm. Totally. It's taxing. It really is taxing, and there's days that can be harder than others. It's not going to be the best every day, and that's okay. And I think we set such a high standard for ourselves nowadays, and for our children and so forth. So I think we just sometimes have to realize that, it's going to be tough out there, and it's going to be difficult. And just, again, going back to your core values, just keeping with that. Because that's the most important thing, because I never want to present myself in a way that makes somebody question me, in a sense of my character, or when I leave, I don't want it to be something that, they said this, but they're actually like this,
Yeah.
And that's important.
The personal idea of whatever you say behind my back, you should be able to say
Totally.
to my face, and I should be able to agree with you.
Exactly.
And I once heard someone say, don't look at my Facebook, just ask my grandma what she thinks of me.
Oh,
And I'm like,
nice.
I love that.
That's
I'm
great.
like, that's something where if you weren't willing to share it with your grandmother, is that something that would be helpful
Right.
for others? And I'm not saying, like, I know we get involved in things, we make mistakes, life happens, but at your core self, like, who are you proud to be? What legacy are you leaving? And as we wrap up today, I just want to kind of leave our listeners with an idea of, if you don't know your core values, or if you're kind of thinking about it, marinating in it more now, and trying to figure out what your core values are, the first thing I would really encourage you to do is write down a list of any word that energizes you, any word that comes to mind, that really speaks to your identity now. And just do a brain dump. Just write it all down, get it all out. And then from there, look at each one and say, how does this inspire positive action? How does this help me show up in a way that really reflects not just who you are now, but who you want to be? And then what are you going to do based on that? And see if you can come up with 5 to 10 of these values. And then at any given season, I think we operate from about 3 to 5. That's about the amount that our human brain can hold. So if you have a list of 20, that's awesome. You probably won't remember them, nor do you want a checklist of values you have to go off of every day. So start there. If you can get a solid list of 3 to 5. I also have an exercise to create your personal manifesto off of your core values. If you're curious about that, I can share more. But if you have any other suggestions, Brian, about identifying values or what you can do with them, I'd love to hear that as we wrap up.
Yeah, I mean, those are fantastic ideas. I mean, and that's definitely one of the things that I do in my life, and it changes. I mean, understand that those values are going to change, and revisit those often, monthly, weekly, whatever that might be, because it really is something that's a huge takeaway, figuring out who you are. And like I said, I mean, we all change. The person that you dated 9 years ago that you're still dating today are not the same person, and understanding
And you have to expect and anticipate that
Exactly.
change, because if we don't, then we get disappointed.
Yes, definitely. And that's where just issues arise in your own self-doubts, even. And just understanding this, and this is the one thing that I recently, the last 2 years, when I really decided to step out and do what I wanted in life and really wanted to pursue that, is there's a lot of obstacles out there, and there's that huge line that's always going to be in your way. And I always refer to this, I'm not in the business of making memories. I'm in the business of creating a legacy, plain and simple.
Beautiful.
And that's what I want to do. I don't want my kids to have memories about me. I want them to understand what my legacy was. And getting that value of going, there's that line in the way, and there's a reference that I always refer to of in the Bible about Ben and I, and there was a lion, and he's, there's a lion in a pit on a snowy day, and decided to, instead of walk around this, he decides to jump in, kill it, and then continue moving forward. And that just always relates to my life. There's always something that's going to be in your way, and it always appears bigger than what it really is. We just got to be willing to jump in and do it. And I think that's the first step in really being authentic. It's scary. It's very scary.
And oftentimes, I find when we're not authentic, we don't even know there's a pit.
Exactly.
We don't even know there's a lion in the pit, and we
Right.
fall into the pit, and then we're helpless. So
Yep.
one of the beautiful things about the story and kind of relating it to our lives and living authentically is, one, become aware of who you are and aware of your surroundings, so you know what you can do with it. You know how to tackle whatever your metaphorical lion is, and then how to move on and grow from that.
Right.
Like, that's the power.
Definitely.
Yeah. As you continue exploring how to show up authentically, make sure to check out leadwithintention.com for more insight and other perspectives from millennial changemakers. So we're also launching some great programs this month and offering custom leadership services to support both individual and team success. So definitely check out our services online and let me know if there's any way we can support you. And thank you again for being with us. This is Leslie Bosserman inviting you to join the wholehearted leadership revolution as you continue to lead with intention.